Hi, and welcome to episode 5 of Meet Our Team. Today I'm being joined by Mikayla Logan. Mikayla, thanks for joining me today.
Hello.
Mikayla,
Hello, thanks for having me.
yes. Mikayla comes to us from like everyone else at Drawchange and the Drawchange family, from a bunch of different roles that she has served. So I'll let her share with that. So Mikayla, how and when-ish did you get started in Drawchange?
Okay, so I started May 2019 as an intern. So I was the program director assistant intern summer of 2019. So I started out then as the intern, and then once my internship ended, I stayed on for like a few hours. And I eventually moved into the role of intern manager, and also at the same time moved into a volunteer program lead role. So I went into a paid position with the organization, and then I also became a program lead at our Friday shelters. And I also, when I was a summer intern, I would volunteer a lot at Art Camp. And then this year, I started as an Art Camp instructor at our virtual Art Camp. And yeah, I believe that's everything.
I wasn't counting. Was that like 5 different roles?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how you count the role. Because I also used to volunteer before I was a program lead. So I don't know. It gets all blended in.
And for anyone who's watching that may not understand, what is a program lead?
Yeah, so a program lead is kind of like if you go to the shelter, there's the person in charge of who's running the program. So like, yeah, it's whoever's in charge of running the program. There's the volunteers who like sit at the tables and like help the children with their projects, and the program lead is who is in charge of like facilitating the project and making sure like everyone's listening, everyone understands the project. We lead the imagination sessions, the breathing exercises, and there's usually at least 2 program leads. So one will do like the breathing and the imagination session, and then one will do like the instruction.
And in your opinion, would you say that anyone could be a program lead?
Yeah, I think so. I think anyone could do it.
So we're always pushing for that, right? So one thing that I always mention is that one thing that led me to be able to grow the organization is people stepping up to fulfill that role, because before that, for years and years, it was just me going to all the homeless shelters, and obviously couldn't expand outside of Atlanta or at the time the Costa Rica program that was going if other people didn't step up. So yes, thank you for that.
And I think there's some like validity to that statement too, because like I mean I was still a college student when I became a program lead. And then one of our other program leads is like a 72-year-old like retired veteran. So like very 2 different backgrounds, both can like do the job. So like
yeah, that's true. That's very true. I hope to have DL, who you just referenced,
yeah,
on that'd be a trip.
yeah,
series sometime soon. So we started off these series with doing them weekly, and now after December we're going to go to monthly or semi-monthly, just for any of our regulars that like to watch and catch up. So, okay, so we talked about program lead, which kind of really ties into your volunteer roles at the shelter, and they're kind of one and the same. Sometimes you serve as a volunteer, and sometimes you serve as a volunteer program lead, which is a little different, but pretty self-explanatory. And then, and Cindy said, and working professionals too. So she's probably talking about, can be program leads, right?
Yeah.
Just about anyone can be a program lead. Yeah. So volunteer, program lead, volunteer, intern, and your internship role was the program director
assistant intern. So I would go to the shelters as part of my internship. So every Thursday is when we were going during the summer that year. So I would go every single Thursday and go to the shelters, and I'd be kind of like the program lead's assistant. So I'd make sure they had all the supplies ready in time, like kind of helped transitions go smoother.
Yeah, so that right there, that's a good point. So that right there, you already talked about 4 people that are at each of the shelter programs. So you have the 2 program leads, and then you have the volunteers, and which we always typically have more than one volunteer, and then you have an intern. So, kind of just to put it into perspective for everyone.
Yeah. And then like also obviously like the children, and then the shelter staff is usually there too.
Right. Which are a huge support system to us. We it's definitely a partnership between Drawchange and the shelter staff for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So one thing we didn't talk about is art camp teacher. So
Yes.
did you, I can't remember, were you also an art camp teacher for physical art camp, or did you start with virtual?
I think I started with virtual. I was going to be physical this summer, but last summer I was still an intern and I was still new. But this year I was already graduated from college. I was good to go. We were going to do it in person, and then obviously COVID, so we adapted, did the virtual, and the virtual was really great to lead online. So it was a good transition.
Yeah. So what would you say? So you led how often in virtual art camp?
Once a week, usually. When we first started over the summer, it would be like every other week, I would say. And then once the school year started and we shifted to after school art sessions, I led every single week. I led Mondays and CJ led on Wednesdays.
And how would you compare physical art our shelter sessions to our virtual art camp sessions?
The physical shelter sessions, not like physical art camp, or? Okay.
Well, yeah, so I guess all three of them, I guess.
Okay, I'll do all three.
Okay.
So the shelters is innately very different than art camp, because like the shelters were there for like 45 minutes to an hour. Whereas art camp, when we were there in person, it'd be like all day. It'd be like 9 to 4, I think, or 9 to 3. And then virtual, it's from 3:30 to 5:30. So those are all very different time spans, and that time might be changing in the future. But what we did this past session was 2 hours. And so the shelters, it's obviously going to be different because it's like children experiencing homelessness. So it's a completely different like background. And then an environment too. And then in-person art camp, it was super fun all the time. And it was like, it's more than just like your typical art camp, because I actually remember this recently, but I used to work in an art camp in high school, like at my high school. And that is like, we would literally just do art projects all day long. But like Drawchange art camp, we would do like therapeutic type art projects. So it's like, there's like meaning to the project. Like you get more than just like art and like art skills. Like you get art skills plus like therapy intention behind it. And then virtual, it's like kind of like a virtual version of in-person art camp. Like we still get like the community aspect of it. Like the children all still become friends with each other, which I think is really neat, especially like during COVID, because it's really hard for kids to make friends right now. But they're still able to make friends and like do the art. And it has like, sometimes they like bring in stuff like they're experiencing too. Like they've talked about COVID in their artwork before, like kind of gotten some of that out through there. Yeah. And then,
Yeah, no, that's a great start. So in terms of friendships, because I think that's very important, and it's a great topic to talk about. Like right now, children are having a difficult time making friends. They cannot make friends, and let alone they can't get together with their existing friends. So what would you say has been, like what was your experience with that, with making friendships or acquaintances that the children are making with each other?
Yeah, it was honestly really cute to watch, like, because they would get used to seeing each other, and then if like one would be missing or like be late to the session, they would be like, "Oh, where's so and so?" I wanted to tell them about my like weekend. And then it's like towards the end of our camp, they would like start drawing each other in each other's art and be like, "Look, I put so and so in my picture," and like we're friends. Or like they would want to like be like, "Get your parents so we can like talk about making other like play dates and stuff." So it was really cool to see them like start out as like strangers on Zoom, like not knowing each other at all, and then by the end like wanting to like put each other in their artwork and like see each other again next week.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, because it's like even for adults, like, can you make friendships virtually? Period. Never mind here. Like, is that possible? And I think we saw that is possible, and especially when they continue and they're regulars, right? When they like week after week after week.
It was true for the adults and the volunteers too. Like I volunteered with Camellia every week, and we got really close, like volunteering together. And it was like me, Camille, and like any of the children that would be there that day, we all got to know each other really well, to the point where it was like, I would start to play music I knew they liked because we would talk to them that much. Like one camper in particular liked Sonic music a lot. So I'd always play Sonic songs at least once whenever they were there.
That's awesome. So what would you say is the difference from our, and I know I'm asking you difficult questions, so thanks for answering.
You're good.
What would you say is the difference between our art camp and say, and again, we're calling it camp, but really it's after school art sessions where, because it's after school, we kind of just derived the name art camp because we were in person. And it's not a class.
Yeah.
It's not a class, so we don't call it art class, and that actually takes me to my next question. So what would you say is the difference between an art class and our after school art sessions? And by the way, before you get to that, sorry, CJ says Mikayla has been an irreplaceable part of Drawchange. So glad to have led art camp with her.
Oh, CJ's so sweet.
And Cindy says it seems like art camp is very student led. Would you say that?
I would say it's very intentional. Like we give students the choice to like lead. Like we empower them to make decisions for themselves. Like I'll let them kind of have some freedom in their choices, which especially now during COVID, like they like get more like they still get like the structure that like children need, but they also get like a bit of independence, which they also need to like grow, and like that helps them when they become an adult.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's kind of where my next question was going. So that independence, which I would say is maybe what Cindy is asking, is brought out from the perspective of, you know, you don't say, today we're going to draw a snowman. The first thing you do is a ball at the top. The second thing you do is a ball at the bottom. So if you don't do that, what do you do?
Yeah, so, and I'm kind of going to answer like your other question you're going to ask too, like kind of in the same, like a regular art class, like that question.
Right.
So I'll start with that first. So like a regular art class, like you go to an art camp or an art class that's like specifically for that, it's going to be like a lot more technical, I would say, and like there is a wrong way to do things, if that makes sense. Like I don't want to say it's like critical, because like most stuff with children isn't going to be too critical, but it's like there's like, it's very like you said, like you draw this circle, then you draw that circle, like, you know, very like follow the instructions, like this is what you do. Whereas like what we do is, it's like, first of all, we start with a breathing exercise. So it's like immediately you're getting like a therapeutic aspect, which is like awesome. Like one of my other jobs is I work as a paraprofessional at a family counseling center. And like, that's one of the skills we teach them, like, is breathing exercises. So it's like, they're literally getting a breathing exercise in the camp, which is cool. And then we do an imagination session. So like during that, it's like, you're imagining the project however like they want to do it. So like I can say like, imagine a snowman, and then like they draw the snowman however they envision it. Like, cause like my snowman could look like the little ball things, or like someone could draw Frosty the snowman who looks very different than like what that structure would have been. You know what I mean? So it's like we kind of give them the room to interpret it however they're thinking and like wherever their emotions are leading them to.
I like that. Yeah. And Cindy asked, how's that beneficial compared to a regular art class? So I guess that you might have just answered that, but if I had to answer that, I would say that a regular art class is what I call art for art's sake, where you draw because you want to draw, which is, I have nothing against, I'm a fine artist myself. And this is more of a therapeutic value. You get to relax, like you were saying, with the breathing exercise and the imagination session. You close your eyes and you put your head down on your desk. So it's that very introspective. And it, in my opinion, it gives room for creative ideas. It gives room for interpretation of not every snowman has to look the same. It gives room for a child being a child and feeling safe. And that's another thing, feeling safe in this environment to tell you, hey, Miss Mikayla, I want to listen to the Sonic soundtrack or whatever it was that you were playing for them. And I think that is one of the things for sure that sets our sessions apart from a lot of other ones. Oh, Camila joined. She said it was always a fun time seeing each camper's interpretation of the art project.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also, it's really cool to see how all of their interpretations are different. Do you by chance happen to have any examples that you created during?
Yeah, so like sometimes I'll make art projects, like whatever we worked on with them. So like this one, for example, is like a little superhero we made. It's kind of bright, but it's like we wanted to give them some like aspects of like adding stuff in, so they could use construction paper. I used white paper, obviously. And you add in like different parts to express yourself. Like I put a big heart because I'm loving, and then like just different things to display yourself as like a little superhero.
So that probably was like under an empowerment project that we were doing.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like envision yourself as like what makes you super type of thing. And like I think this was supposed to be something like I tap it and it like helps whoever's around me or something like that. So it's like you put like whatever your superpowers was like in your superhero and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I was not in that art camp session, but I could only imagine that the conversation that was involved in that art camp session was probably fun and interactive. Like, do you happen to remember any of the, and by the way, I didn't prep Mikayla at all for all do you happen to remember at all any other superhero qualities, if not necessarily the same exact?
A lot of them put that they were funny, and they are in fact very funny children. So can't confirm. But it was like kind of along the lines of like they're always like nice to their friends, and they said that was like a superpower, is like that they are kind and caring and like always want to help people.
That's
and
awesome.
So I thought that was a really cool superpower. I was like, yes, that's a great superpower.
Yeah, that's awesome. Eileen says, wonderful to learn about all the positivity that comes from art camp. I think she hits right on something. It's a very positive environment where I feel like art class, either virtual or in person, is very much kind of like what students are currently dealing with now with school, like virtual school. It's like they're being talked at. And that's a big difference for us in all of our programs, homeless shelter or virtual art camp or physical art camp. No one's talking to them. You're talking with them. You're hanging out with them. In the sense of virtual art camp, it's 2 hours of you're having fun, like you said, right?
It'll get to the end, like especially like towards the end of art camp season, like they wouldn't want to leave. And like I would get to the point where sometimes me and like the volunteer would not want to leave. We'd be like, oh man, it's already over. Like and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And like kind of like you were saying like earlier, like both are good in their own regards. They're just different. And I think that's like a beautiful thing. Like art classes are great, like art for art's sake is a beautiful thing. And then also what we're doing is like unique, and like that's also good. Like good, they're both good.
Yeah. And it's like you said, a lot of times the children don't want to leave themselves, right? Even though they've probably been on the screen most of the day, if not all day, with schooling, and now then they come to us. And what would you say, what do you think that has to do with it? You might have answered that already, but
I would say it has to do with like I don't know, the friendships they built. Like they want to be with their friends, you know what I mean? So it's like, because everyone's kind of living in isolation right now. So it's like, I got 2 hours with my new friends. That's awesome. And now I have to leave and go back to like not being with friends, which like
being by myself. Yeah.
Eventually you always have to leave your friends, but it's a little different when you're on Zoom to see your friends all the time.
Yeah, it's a little different when we're all quarantined at the moment. I was gonna say something, and I think that when we first, because it was a decision we had to make, because we were obviously going to do in-person camp. I know we had, and by the way, you still work behind the scenes for us as the intern manager. I'm not sure if that.
I'm still doing that too.
When we were talking about, transitioning to virtual, we were wondering if 2 hours was going to be too much. Like the children are in front of the screen for a lot of time, and parents are always trying to restrict screen time, etc. And I think that hasn't really been the case, right? Like these children want to be in front of the screen, and it's not so much like they're not just mindlessly staring at the screen, either watching a movie, watching Netflix, or they're not playing a video game. They're interacting, they're talking to each other, they're listening to their favorite music, they're playing, and we also play games. Like what kind of games?
I was about to say, I wouldn't say they're even staring at the screen the whole 2 hours, if that makes sense, because they are like, you know, creating art. So they are looking at that a lot of the time. And so like, usually they'll be like here creating, and like, they'll look at the screen, like talk to us, or like look at the screen, like show us the art, be like, look at what I made. Like, oh, so cool. And we're like, yeah. That's another thing we didn't mention, but we always do show and tell, which is also very empowering. But this thing, oh yeah, they show their stuff and we play games. So like, sometimes we'll play I Spy. So like, we'll be like looking like, I spy something blue, and I'll be like, is it this paint? This painting, I can't figure out where to point, but this painting. And yeah, I just said my favorite game was Virtual I Spy, and we played it. It was really fun. We started playing it a lot because I really liked that one. There was one time we used to play like Where's Waldo and stuff. It was really fun. But yeah, the screen time, it goes by fast because it's like we're interacting the whole time. It's not like, I don't know, they're mindlessly playing their Nintendo Switch. They're actually engaging with humans, and like the screen time is still a conversation we're having if we want to keep it 2 hours or not. So if you have opinions on if we should keep it 2 hours, let us know.
But yeah, I think that's important. It's not, you know, I necessarily wouldn't classify our after school art sessions as screen time. They're interacting with people behind the screen, but it's exactly that. They're interacting. They're not staring at the screen. They're not, and like you said, you know, a lot of the time they are drawing, they are creating, they are, you know, using their imagination. They're, you know,
like one child, he would always like show us his like little Mario and Sonic characters, and like he would pretend to be the characters and stuff. And it was like really cute because it's like he would hide and like hold up his little character and be like, hello, it's me, Mario. It was really cute.
Yeah, because I think he has, which we won't use names, but he has a baby sister, right? So he doesn't really have many people to interact with.
And his little sister's like 3, so she's like, like they hang out and like do fun stuff, but she's a lot younger than him.
Yeah. Okay, so before I ask you my final question, so we're already at 22 minutes. Time flew. I want to say that Francisco has commented a few times, and he said, yes, I love how much creative power they have in the process. And it's right on point. Yeah. So do you have a moment that you felt like, you know, since we're talking about virtual art camp, you can answer about that. Or if you can't think of one for virtual art camp, just in general, Drawchange, whether it's behind the scenes or not. But again, if you have one for virtual art camp, that a moment that you were like, this is working. Like I can see why Drawchange exists and why Drawchange is needed in our community and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can think of a few times for the shelters. And I can definitely think of a few for virtual art camp. So I'll go with one for virtual art camp. But there is this one camper, and anyone who's volunteered at Art Camp knows who camper is. But she started out like really shy and like kind of like she'd take forever on her projects and like kept being like, oh, I messed up. Like kept wanting to restart every time. Like would like always throw out her projects and like was not very confident or seemed very not confident in the beginning. And she like was very shy and everything. And then she like stayed through the entire time we had it, and she got like super into it and like started making friends with like everyone and like was getting more and more bold with her projects and was like adding more and more color and like kept thinking she was making mistakes less. Like at the beginning it was like any time she like drew something she thought was off, she'd be like, oh, I messed up, I have to start all over again. And we were like, no, it's fine, it looks amazing, like it looks great. And like towards the end there was less of the, oh, I'm constantly making mistakes. It was more of a, oh, I'm making something really cool, like look at what I can do all this cool stuff. And she would like always like come in with like, she'd be like, look, I was practicing art over the weekend. Look at what I made this weekend and this weekend. And so it's really cool to see her confidence grow over the summer and like this semester of the school year.
Yeah, it's amazing. And again, I'm not just saying this because it's me, but it's amazing. Like this was developed through a virtual means, through a computer, and something that, you know, everyone may not think that it's possible, but kind of when you're forced to do it like this year, you see that it is possible. I remember when she first started, like her screen would be like right here, so you couldn't even see her eyes, and I think that was intentional. And
yeah, she would always turn off her camera too.
Yeah, right. It's just, yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and yeah, we received a lot of positive feedback from her mom too about how her
and she used to always ask questions.
Yeah.
She would like private message the chat and be like, "Is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that?" I'd be like, "Yes, it's okay."
And of course.
What were you saying about her mom?
Yeah, no, that her mom would always several times thanked me for how we've been able to, like, she even used the word blossom, like my child has blossomed through these virtual sessions. It's just so awesome, like that. Yeah, just these 2 hours. Like I think she attended once a week sometimes and twice a week sometimes. So I know we're taking a break from virtual art camp just for the month of December, but for anyone watching, we will be back in January 10th?
January 11th.
11th.
Second Monday of January.
There you go. The second Monday of January, we will be back. We're still working out the time and the duration, like Mikayla said. So if you are interested, please let us know what time limit works for you and also what time of day. And we'd love to accommodate as many children as possible. Mikayla, thank you so much. This was awesome. Unless you have anything else to say, we will finish this conversation. Anything burning?
We could end it how we end art camp if you want.
Let's do that.
We can demonstrate.
It's gonna be backwards. That's fine.
Hold on, I gotta figure out.
That way? Oh God. Okay, our video is backward, is mirrored. Okay. 1, 2. In your video's a little.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Bye.
3, 2.
Bye. Bye, Drawchange. Bye.
Bye, Drawchange. Bye. Bye, Drawchange. Bye. Bye, Drawchange.
Oh, you're still going. Drawchange. Bye too. Bye. Thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.